I start by cutting all the parts to the carcass. I rip the 4x8 sheet down to more manageable pieces. I ensure that the width is the height of my side panels. Then I proceed to make all the cuts. I ensure that every part is properly identified. Alright, so I got 5/8 and 1/4. So 5/8 and 3/8. That is 1 inch. So I'm gonna mark this out. It'll be 1 inch down the center here. 1 inch and 3/4. 1 inch and 3/4 right here. This will be my groove right here. As you can see, I'm gonna have this. It's gonna be grooved here, and this is gonna leave me 1/8 of an inch. Perfect. Now I'm gonna head over to the table saw and set up my dado stack. So I want it at 1/4, so let me do 5/16 here. Does not look right. I cut 1/4 inch dados on my side panels and my bottom panel. This will allow me to install my 1/4 inch back panel. Alright, now that I have all my pieces cut, I'm going to go ahead and just start the bottom cabinet. I still have one more task to do. These are going to be the sides, so I will be installing holes here for pins. This will hold the middle shelf here. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm using a Craig's shelf jig for this task. It'll make the job much easier and much quicker. I repeat the process for both sides of the panel. Now I cut the stretches for my bottom cabinet. So the front facing, everything's white melamine, but when I install this in my kitchen, that you won't be able to see the sides of these cabinets, and you'll see later on why. So I'm leaving the external white, and I'm going to edge band the face with maple, which is going to match my maple doors. I got a 250-foot roll here, so I'm just going to pre-measure, just let it overhang a bit, and cut it trim. It's just easier to install. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll let it overhang on both sides. Very simple. Take your iron. Make sure your wife doesn't know that you bored her iron. Yeah, just put it back clean. So this is I would say it's the least fun part of building anything, but it's worth doing it before you assemble it. You'll have nice clean edges. All right, so that's nice and glued. See, I'll just let that cool down, and we'll trim them after. Now I'm starting to assemble my lower cabinets. When you take the time to cut everything straight, the project goes together quite easily. I recommend using parallel clamps for this process. It made the job much easier. Now I'm installing the 1/4-inch back panel. The reason I'm not sliding it straight from the top is that I don't have the clearance in my shop with the table for it to slide down. Now I'm making sure that all the fronts of the parts are flush and even together before I tighten everything. Yeah, so just a caveat, I'm not a professional woodworker. About in the 90s, I started my career as a welder fabricator. Did a two-year course on that, then worked many years in the trade. So I had a lot of experience with blueprints and using squares and putting things together. I transferred my skills into woodworking. Probably I would say in the mid 2000s, where I started building decks, stuff like that. And it's only the last couple of years that I've been actually tackling furniture and woodworking. This is actually my first time building kitchen cabinets. I'll put a link in the description of a channel that I learned some tips from. Yeah, so this is the first time I do that. This just goes to show you that anybody can get into woodworking. I mean, YouTube's a valuable place to learn, and especially if you work full time. Not everybody has the time to go to night school and learn these skills. So yeah, so watch YouTube, watch a lot of different channels. A lot of people are give really good tips on how to do this. So obviously I'm learning a lot here. Like I said before, next time I do this type of cabinet with a melamine, I'm going to use a melamine maple instead of a real maple veneer. It's just easier to trim because I can't really sand and blend without ruining the melamine here. But this is going in my kitchen, and I'm going to learn a lot from that. Yeah, so I'm extending my kitchen. You'll see later during my installation phase of the video where I have a small kitchen and all my breakfast stuff is on the counter. I have no more counter space, so I have a 6-foot inset just off of my kitchen where I'm going to be extending it. That's why I'm building these cabinets. So a few years ago, I asked a person to quote me on just installing simple cabinets, not even using good quality, just particle board, and it was in the range of over $5,000. All in all, with real maple doors and quality cabinets, I'm looking at just slightly over $1,000 for a new kitchen. So it's well worth it. It's well worth investing the time and in the tools. So yeah, I'll get back to it. Now I proceed to install the stretchers. I start with the top and I'll work my way to the back. I use narrow staplers just to hold it in place before I actually screw everything down. Just temporary, and then I'll screw these in afterwards. I'm marking the location of my screws. Prior to screwing everything down, I'm going to drill a pilot hole, then I'm going to countersink him. This will minimize the chance of the stretcher splitting when I screw the screws in. I still have this box left to do, and then one more for the lowers. After this, I'm just going to shut the camera off because it's just repeating itself. I'll turn the camera back on when I do my uppers. Maybe it's the same. It's pretty much the same idea, right? You're doing the bottom and the top is the same way. The same methodology, everything. What's going to be different is when I install it. So I think the next time I start recording again, it'll be when I do my maple shaker doors. That'll be interesting. So for my cabinet doors, I'm going to go with the shaker style. I'm going to be using real maple, and the centerpiece is an MDF core with two-sided maple veneer here. Right. Yeah, so this door is a prototype I made. I wanted to see if actually if my wife would like it, and it's going to go well with our kitchen. So yeah. So for the door styles and the stretchers, I rip a 1x5 maple board in two, which leaves me 2 1/4 finished. I cut all my pieces prior to going to the router table. The distance from this bearing to the tip of the blade is 1/2 inch. So I'll have a 1/2 inch groove by 1/4 inch. Ensure that my test pieces are properly fitted before I run my good stock. Here I cut a portion of my groove stock, which will make up the top and bottom stretchers of my door. I clamp 4 short stock together and run them through the router table as one. It makes it much easier to create a straight cut. I turn the stretchers around and make a cut on the other side. Now I'm cutting the 1/4 inch veneer maple, which will make up the center panel of my doors. I ensure that the panels are 1 inch larger than the interior dimensions of my door. This will allow the panels to fit nicely into the grooves. Here I'm just doing the dry fit of all my pieces. I just want to make sure I have no surprise when I come back in the morning to assemble them. Put in my panel. Here. Perfect. I come back to my shop in the morning and start gluing up my doors. I use glue in the grooves, as my center panel is made up of MDF and veneer maple, so there's no chance of it expanding or contracting. I have a total of 24 doors, so I don't have enough clamps to clamp everything down overnight. So I use green painter's tape to keep everything tight overnight. Alright, this is going to be my countertop for my breakfast nook. I bought some good wormy maple. I think it's going to look nice. It's for my, like I said, it's for my breakfast nook. I'll go ahead and glue these panels together, and when it's all dry I'll sand it and trim it down to size and install it in the kitchen. I really like the pattern of this wood for the with my maple cupboards. It's going to be really nice. I'm just going to use a couple dominoes just to keep it all straight. Not too many though. I'm not going to go crazy because this is going to be screwed down to my cabinet. It's not a tabletop. Just a small caveat. I happen to have a domino, but you really don't need a domino for this at all. As a matter of fact, you don't need anything. You can just use clamps. But since I already have the domino, I'm going to go ahead and use it. Here. Good. Mark these out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so it's been 24 hours. After 24 hours, I removed the countertop from the clamps. Wormy maple has tiny pinholes as a result of the beetles that feed off the tree. I'm using a 2-part CA glue with an activator to fill the holes. The activator makes the glue hard almost instantly. Put on some general finishes in Durovar. I've already used this product before. I really like it. It's water-based. It dries fairly quickly, which is why I like it. And this one's a satin finish. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. I'm gonna apply one coat to the bottom, just so my whole countertop is protected, so it doesn't work over time. While using this type of finish, you want to resist the urge to overbrush. Once you're done applying the finish, you'll notice brush lines, but resist the urge to overbrush it. As it dries, these lines will level itself out. Now it's time to install the hinges onto the doors. I mark out which door is left and right. Then I proceed with marking out the locations of the hinges. To install these recessed hinges, I use a Craig's jig. It makes the job easy and consistent. I use a shop vac to extract all the chips as I drill. Yeah, so for the handles, I just made a simple jig here. This is just 2 scrap pieces. I use CA glue with an activator. And this is 2 1/4 from each end. Right here, 2 1/4 from each end. And this fits perfectly there. So I just line that up here and drill through. To connect the hinge to the carcass, I'm going to need to install this plate here. But instead of measuring all the time, I just created this template here. To make the template, I measured the distance of the holes on the plate, and I referred to the manufacturing installation guide to locate the holes to the edge of the template. Once you have your template made, align the center line of your template with the center line of your recessed hinge. Center line that I already drew. You don't want to. Perfect. And I do the same for the other side. You don't want to over tighten. Once the door is connected to the carcass, I proceed with installing the handle. You don't want to over tighten. Nice nut. I repeat the process for the other door, and the cabinet is finished. This is the end of part 1. If you want to see how I installed these cabinets into my kitchen, watch part 2, coming soon.